Jamari thrashed didn't land in Cleveland by coincidence. His signing, alongside Garrett Dillinger, marks a tactical shift in how the Browns plan to support their rookie quarterback, Shedeur Sanders. It's a quiet admission that the offense has been overly dependent on Sanders' arm and improvisation. But it's also a message this team is building around him, not bracing because of him. That's a sharp contrast to the noise outside the building. Critics see wristband issues and turnovers. The front office sees long-term value and growth. And players like Fannin Jr. are publicly backing that belief, urging a focus on context over chaos. Thrash's presence isn't just about speed. It's about structure. It's a signal that Cleveland is adapting to Sanders, not the other way around. And in that environment, mistakes like misreads and sideline check-ins aren't red flags.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
There's steps in the process. Fannin's defense of Sanders isn't lip service. It reflects a culture where resilience is valued over reaction. What outsiders label as dysfunction, insiders recognize as development, with everyone from receivers to linemen aligning behind a quarterback who's learning fast and earning trust even faster. Fannin Jr. is not one to chase the spotlight, but when he speaks, especially about Shedeur Sanders, people inside the league pay attention. His latest comments didn't just add fuel to the already blazing media firestorm around Sanders. They reframed it completely. While critics on social media were busy crafting hot takes about interceptions and wristbands, Fannin calmly offered a breakdown rooted in actual experience, not speculation. And coming from someone who's been in the trenches with Shedeur, his words carried weight. He didn't mince words when it came to the narrative that Shedeur's 3-interception performance was a meltdown. According to Fannin, those picks weren't the result of panic or miscommunication, but rather normal byproducts of an evolving quarterback learning NFL speed and coverages in real time. It wasn't chaos. It was football. More importantly, it was developmental football where patterns get learned the hard way, on the field, not in theory. And then there was the wristband moment. The incident that turned into an internet punchline, a symbol for everything supposedly wrong with Shedeur's start. Fannin didn't even flinch addressing it. He explained the situation plainly. Shedeur needed a confirmation from the sideline about play calling during a fast-paced sequence, which led to what some read as confusion. But to Fannin and everyone inside that huddle, it was routine. Not a meltdown, not a blunder. Just a second-year signal caller doing a check. It's the disconnect that's most frustrating to those around Sanders. While the outside world interprets these hiccups as signs of incompetence inside the Browns' locker room, they're seen as what they are, tiny moments in the much longer timeline of quarterback development. And no one understands that more clearly than Fannin Jr., who's been catching passes from Sanders long before the NFL lights ever turn on. The chemistry between them didn't happen overnight. It was built across countless reps, on practice fields and film rooms, through blitzes and broken plays. Fannin emphasized that the trust between him and Sanders is mutual and deep. That kind of trust doesn't survive unless it's tested. And this season, it's been tested plenty. Yet through all of it, Fannin said Sanders hasn't once lost his composure. What the public sees as regression, Fannin sees as repetition, because that's how growth actually happens in the NFL. You make a read, you miss, you see it on film, and next time, you adjust. Fannin's tone made it clear. They're not worried. They're working. And from his perspective, Shedeur's football IQ and mental toughness are improving with every snap, no matter how ugly the stats may look on a social media. But it hasn't been all on Sanders, and Fannin wasn't shy about pointing that out either. He mentioned the offense has been disjointed at times, not because of the quarterback alone, but because of inconsistent execution across the board. Drops, misassignments, line breakdowns, these are team issues. And when the offense is sputtering, the quarterback usually takes the fall. Fannin's frustration wasn't directed at the critics. It was at the oversimplification of the narrative. He knows what's really happening. Sanders is stepping into a broken system and trying to play hero ball every down. That's not sustainable, and Fannin said as much. The responsibility has to be shared, and that's where the front office has finally started to respond, with reinforcements. Enter Jamari Thrash and Garrett Dillinger, two strategic signings that, according to Fannin, are already changing the dynamics. Thrash's ability to separate quickly off the line and stretch the field has opened up new reads for Sanders, while Dillinger brings needed power and stability to a line that struggled to keep defenders off the rookie QB. It's not just plugging holes. It's restructuring the offense to reduce the pressure Cooker Shedeur has been trapped in. Fannin pointed to one play in particular, Thrash running a clean-out route that pulled coverage away and gave Sanders a clean window to hit Fannin in stride. That moment, Fannin said, is exactly what's been missing. Teammates creating space, not just waiting for Shedeur to make magic. He called it a turning point, not in the game itself, but in the broader sense of how this offense might finally start to function as he... Despite the media obsession with numbers, Fannin kept coming back to the intangibles. He talked about poise, about how Sanders handles bad drives and frustrating quarters, not with tantrums or blame, but with focus. That poise, Fannin said, is what separates potential stars from flameouts. And from what he sees, Sanders has it in spades. The wristband moment, a blip, the picks, lessons. What really matters, according to Fannin, is how Sanders shows up the next day. And he shows up even when the headlines don't, even when the narrative is spiraling out of control. Fannin made it clear that Sanders isn't chasing approval. He's chasing consistency. And for a quarterback that young, in a system this shaky, consistency is... Fannin also touched on the toll this season has taken on Shedeur physically. The constant hits, the pocket collapses, and the weight of trying to do too much. There were times, he admitted, when Sanders could have taken a safe play and didn't, either out of competitiveness or sheer belief that he could make something out of nothing. And yes, that led to pain, but it also led to growth. The back issues, the bruises, they weren't just wear and tear. They were symptoms of a young quarterback carrying too much. Fannin made a point to say that's changing now. With better support and smarter play design, Sanders won't have to do it all himself. And that shift, more than anything, could be the start of something real. When asked about the locker room energy, Fannin didn't hesitate. It's unified, and it's behind Shedeur. There's no fracture, no finger-pointing. He said guys are playing for each other, not for headlines. And for a rookie QB under this kind of scrutiny, that's not just helpful, it's vital. He even mentioned how veterans have stepped up, not just in games, but in meetings and practices, helping Sanders read coverages, breaking down film together, reinforcing that mistakes are part of the process. There's a quiet belief growing in the building, one that doesn't match the chaos outside. And that quiet belief is something the media hasn't touched, because it's not sexy, it's not viral, but it's real. Fannin described Shedeur as obsessive about improvement, not desperate, focused. Even when sidelined or struggling, he's watching tape, asking questions, staying involved. That level of engagement, Fannin said, isn't normal for rookies. It's a sign of someone who wants this for the long haul. The team sees it. Coaches see it. And while the public might not, that's not going to stop the Browns from building around it. As the Browns continue to adjust their personnel and game plans, Fannin believes the best version of Sanders is still ahead. Not next week, not even this season, but eventually. That kind of patience is rare in this league, but Fannin thinks it's the only way to build something that lasts. Development, he said, is a pattern. See it, miss it, fix it, repeat. And Shedeur's already deep into that cycle. With each game, each snap, he's stacking knowledge. The lows are painful, but they're not wasted. And with teammates like Fannin in his corner, the rookie isn't just surviving, he's building something. Maybe not for today's headlines, but definitely for tomorrow's wins. So if you're still stuck on wristbands and interceptions, maybe it's time to zoom out, watch the process unfold. And don't forget to like, share, comment your take, and subscribe for more breakdowns just like this. There's this obsession in the league with instant greatness. If a quarterback isn't lighting it up in the first 5 games, people start throwing around the bust label like it's candy. But Fannin wants people to step back and actually watch the tape. He brought up multiple plays, drives where Sanders made reads that would have gone completely unnoticed if the receiver didn't drop the ball or the line didn't collapse. He wasn't making excuses. He was laying out reality. In this league, context matters. Sanders has been under pressure, both literal and figurative, every snap he's taken. But through it all, he keeps showing progress. Not just in yards or completion percentages, but in decisions. He's seeing the field better. His timing is improving. And that, Fannin emphasized, is what real quarterback development looks like. Fannin's commentary didn't just stop at mechanics. He spoke about character, about who Shedeur is behind the scenes. The kind of guy who takes accountability in meetings, who checks in with his teammates after bad games, and who never points a finger, even when he probably could. That kind of leadership, Fannin said, can't be coached. It's either there or it isn't. And with Sanders, it's always been there. He also mentioned how Shedeur's resilience reminds him of guys who've lasted a decade or more in the league. Not because they were the flashiest, but because they were the most consistent in how they approach the grind. That's what has the locker room buying in. Not flashy throws on highlight reels, but the way Sanders handles the hard days. One of those hard days came during the matchup against the Bengals. 3 quarters of relentless pressure, constant blitzes, a collapsing pocket. Yet there were moments, fleeting but undeniable, where Sanders looked composed, even surgical. Fannin brought up a sideline throw Sanders made under pressure that split 2 defenders and hit the receiver on the numbers. It didn't go viral, but it should have. Those are the throws that prove something's clicking. Not every pass will make SportsCenter, but the guys on the field notice. Fannin said after that drive, you could feel a shift in the huddle. Confidence. Trust. Guys believing they weren't just reacting. They were building something. And it all ties back to preparation. Fannin made it clear that what Shedeur does during the week sets the tone for Sundays. He's the guy staying late in the film room, running extra reps with receivers, and double-checking formations with coaches. Fannin called it quiet leadership, the kind that doesn't need a camera to be real. He also shared that when practice ends, Sanders doesn't. He'll pull Fannin aside and run through routes just one more time. It's not about perfection. It's about routine. And for Fannin, that's what sets Sanders apart. He's not chasing validation. He's chasing rhythm, reps, and results. Of course, off the field, Sanders has still been in the spotlight. Whether it's brand deals or being Deion's son, the microscope is never off. But Fannin dismissed the idea that any of it's been a distraction. He said Sanders separates business from ball like a vet. And despite what critics might claim, the locker room doesn't care about commercials. They care about commitment. And according to Fannin, Sanders hasn't missed a beat. He's not showing up late. He's not skipping workouts. He's not letting any of the noise creep into his prep. If anything, the pressure is fueling him. That outside noise is turning into internal drive. The addition of Jamari Thrash has only helped amplify that drive. Fannin said the second Thrash walked into the facility, it was clear he wasn't just here to fill a roster spot. He came in sharp, fast, and already syncing with Shedeur in drills. Their timing is still a work in progress, but the potential is obvious. Thrash opens up lanes that weren't there before. Defenses have to respect his speed, and that gives Sanders more breathing room to operate. Fannin even joked that he's had to fight for targets a bit more now, but he welcomes it, because that kind of competition only makes the group better. In one of Sanders' recent interviews, he was asked directly about the criticism, how it feels to be under a national microscope while still trying to find your footing. His response wasn't rehearsed. It was raw. He said, "It comes with it. I knew what this was before I got here. You take the hits, you make the adjustments, and you keep pushing." That's the part Fannin thinks people don't see. The maturity. The understanding that pressure is an excuse. It's a given. He said Sanders isn't trying to win every argument online. He's trying to win over the guys in the huddle. And slowly, week by week, the game against the Titans was a prime example. The stat sheet wasn't kind, but the effort? Unquestionable. Fannin said it was one of the most physically demanding games he's played in, and Sanders never once backed down. Took hit after hit, but kept getting up. Adjusted protections mid-drive. Changed routes based on coverage shifts. Those things don't show up in fantasy scores or highlight reels, but they matter. And to the guys around Sanders, they're the reasons they keep believing. Fannin said after that game, the locker room wasn't dejected. Shedeur's speeches to the team have started to change too. Early on, he was quieter, still learning the pace of the league. But lately, Fannin says, he started owning the room. He's not yelling. He's directing, correcting, encouraging. And when he speaks, guys listen. It's a shift you can feel. A shift from surviving to leading. And for a rookie QB in this league, that kind of transition doesn't happen without buy-in from coaches, teammates, and most of all, from yourself. One of the more frustrating games this season was against the Raiders. The offense just couldn't get in rhythm. But Fannin said what stood out wasn't the missed opportunities. It was how Sanders responded. No visible frustration. No panic. Just regrouping after every drive, asking questions, staying locked in. He described one moment on the sideline where Sanders, clipboard in hand, was calmly going over misreads with the receiver's coach. It wasn't dramatic, but it was professional. That's the version of Shedeur the locker room believes in. The version who's willing to eat the losses now to avoid them later. One of the reasons Harold Fannin Jr., defense of Sanders lands with such impact is because he's not just praising a friend. He's stating what teammates have been saying privately for weeks, that the rookie is built for this, built for the scrutiny, the hits, the pressure. There's never been a moment this season where Shedeur has crumbled under the spotlight, even when the scoreboard wasn't kind and the analysts were circling like vultures. Fannin described a shift in tone during practices, where early in the year, Shedeur was absorbing, now he's directing. And it's not just with skill guys. He's challenging the line, asking the right questions in meetings, holding himself accountable before anyone else does. That kind of presence is rare for a rookie. But according to Fannin, Sanders has always understood the weight of his position. Not just as a quarterback, but as a quarterback of a franchise desperately looking for its identity. Fannin recalled a closed-door film session from earlier in the season. No coaches, just players. They broke down every offensive possession from their last loss. Every drop, every wrong route, every mistimed block. Fannin said Shedeur stood in front of the group, went play-by-play, and owned every one of his mistakes. No excuses. And then he did something rare. He pointed out his good reads and his bad ones, showing the pattern in his decision-making and what he'd learned from each look. That's not normal. Rookies don't do that. Veterans barely do that. But Shedeur did. And that's when Fannin said the whole room shifted. That's when the locker room stopped seeing him as a rookie and started seeing him as a guy. Even in games where the offense struggled, like the matchup against the Packers, there were moments that stuck with Fannin. Not the highlight throws, but the moments in between. The way Sanders adjusted protections at the line, anticipating blitz packages. The way he kept guys focused after a failed fourth down. The cameras might have caught the frustration, but they missed what Fannin saw. Sanders walking down the sideline, putting his hand on each offensive lineman's shoulder, nodding, talking, not yelling, resetting. That's what Fannin says separates him from the noise. His emotional control. He doesn't let chaos define him. He absorbs it and keeps going. Against the 49ers, one of the league's most physical defenses, Sanders took a beating. The stat line wasn't pretty, but Fannin says that game was a turning point internally. Not because they won. It wasn't about that, but because Shedeur kept swinging. Every hit, every sack, he got up, and more importantly, he never stopped trying to win it. There was a fourth-quarter drive where everything was stacked against them. Bad field position, down 2 scores, relentless pressure. And yet Sanders orchestrated a series that pushed them downfield with poise. Fannin caught a crucial third-down ball during that sequence, and remembers the look Sanders gave him in the huddle. Focused, calm, locked in. That look said, "We're not." Fannin emphasized that people need to stop looking at Sanders' performance in isolation. The offense is in flux. Personnel changes, injuries, new schemes. It's a revolving door. But even through all of it, Shedeur has maintained his rhythm. He's adapting, fast, and adaptation, Fannin said, is the only path to success in this league. You don't wait for perfect conditions. You learn in the storm. That's what Shedeur is doing every week, learning in the storm. And while the public might be grading him on touchdown passes, the locker room is grading him on leadership, command, and fight. And on that scale, he's already ahead. Sideline, during the preseason, long before the wristband drama and the interception memes, Shedeur was already putting in the extra work. Fannin remembered a sideline moment when Shedeur wasn't even playing, clipboard in hand, headset on, tracking the defense. He wasn't on the field, but he was mentally in the game, making reads, calling adjustments, learning live. That attention to detail has never gone away. Even now, late in the season, when most rookies are just trying to survive, Shedeur's still locked in on the little things. The technique, the timing, the footwork. Fannin said it's one of the reasons the team believes he'll level up faster than most. He's not just reacting, he's studying constantly. Fannin also made it clear that Sanders has never let his name or family background become a crutch. If anything, it's made things harder. The expectations are heavier. The criticism is louder. But from day one, Shedeur has shown up with a mindset of earning it. Fannin said it's never been about being Deion's son. It's about being the Browns' quarterback. And the team respects that. The veterans see the humility. The rookies see the grind. And the staff? They see a quarterback worth building around. It's not just the plays, it's the personality. The way Sanders handles the grind, the pressure, and the spotlight without ever making it about himself. Segment. After one of the most difficult games of the season, Shedeur stepped up to the podium and addressed the media. He could have deflected, could have blamed play calling or drops. But instead, he owned it. We didn't execute. I didn't execute. But we're going to learn from it. Fannin said the locker room watched that press conference, not because they were curious, but because they were proud. It's not just about what a quarterback does on the field. It's how he represents the team when things go wrong. And in that moment, Sanders showed exactly what kind of leader he is. There have been moments this season where Shedeur's had to watch from the sideline, either due to minor injuries or tactical changes. Fannin said those moments were tough, not because Sanders is ego-driven, but because he's so wired to compete. Sitting out doesn't sit well with him, but he doesn't sulk, doesn't tune out. Fannin said Sanders turns into an extra coach, encouraging the guys on the field, studying angles, keeping energy up. That presence matters. It tells the rest of the roster that this guy isn't just here when it's easy. He's here for every part of the practice, more than anything else, is where Fannin believes Shedeur is setting the tone for the future. The way he attacks drills, the way he redoes reps without being asked, the way he pulls rookies aside to walk through concepts until it clicks. Fannin called it contagious. And that's the hope inside the building, not just that Shedeur will grow, but that he's pulling the rest of the offense with him. The younger receivers, they're starting to mimic his prep. The linemen, they're communicating better, adjusting more. It's subtle, but it's happening. That's the real development story in Cleveland. Not the stat lines, not the media noise, but a group of young players rallying around their rookie quarterback, growing together. And if you've been watching the headlines more than the huddle, you've probably missed it. But now's the time to tune in. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like if you're rooting for the comeback, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Because this story is just getting started.